If you're applying for financial aid to attend college in the United States, at some point you'll hear about subsidized and unsubsidized student loans. And it's really important that you understand the difference between these two types of loans, because subsidized loans are definitely preferable to unsubsidized. And if you get the choice, you should definitely take subsidized over unsubsidized loans if you have the opportunity to choose between them. The reason that subsidized loans are so much better is that with subsidized loans, the government will pay your interest while you're in school at least half time. So if you're taking at least half the amount of credits to be full time, then the government will pay your interest while you're in school, or if you're in your grace period. So after you graduate and leave school, you get six months before you have to start repaying your student loans. So during that time, the government would pay your interest. And also if you go into deferment for your loans. So deferment, if you don't know what that means, that just means a postponement. If you're just having your loans are postponed, maybe you're unemployed or something and you apply for a deferment, and the government would pay your interest for you on your student loans, assuming that they're subsidized loans. And now if it's an unsubsidized loan, what that means is that the borrower is going to be responsible for all of the interest from day one. So the government is not going to pay any of the interest, and each period, any unpaid interest is going to be capitalized to the loan principal. The loan principal just means the balance of the loan that you owe. And it's a little abstract, this idea of capitalization, so I want to walk you through an example to make it a little bit easier for you to understand. So let's say that you take out a student loan of $3,000 at a 5% interest rate. And let's just pretend that you're at the very beginning of your college experience and that you're going to attend 4 years. And so we're going to map out and say, okay, at the beginning, the loan principal, the amount that you owe is $3,000, and obviously there's no interest due at the very beginning. But we're going to pretend that this is an unsubsidized loan. This is an unsubsidized loan. And I want to show you what this capitalization means. So you start with the $3,000, but there's an interest rate of 5%. So multiplying the $3,000 by 5% means that after 1 year, you'll have incurred $150 in interest. Now, if this were a subsidized loan, the government would pay that interest for you because you're still in school. But assuming that you don't pay this, so you're going to be responsible for this interest yourself. Now, it will get capitalized, which means added to your loan principal. The loan balance is the balance of your loan. It'll get capitalized, assuming that you don't pay it yourself at the end of this year. At the end of the year, you get a letter from the government that says, hey, look, $150 of interest has accrued. You can pay that. You can send them a check for the $150, in which case your loan principal will stay at $3,000, or you can just let it ride and just not send them anything, and then they'll add that $150 to your loan principal. You might say, well, why would I bother to borrow this? Well, the thing is that now that the loan principal is $3,150, that $3,150 is going to be multiplied by the 5% to get next period's interest. So next period's interest is going to be $157.50, and that's $3,150 times the 5%. Now, notice something. The interest, assuming you didn't pay it at the end of the first year and you just let it be added to your loan balance, now the interest that you incurred before is itself earning interest, right? Or you're incurring interest, I should say. So that $3,150 instead of $3,000 is being multiplied by that 5%. And so that's why the interest that you incur during year 2 is more than what you incurred during year 1. So now we add this $157.50 to the $3,150, and so that gives us $3,307.50. We multiply that $3307.50 times the 5% again. That gives us for year 3, your junior year of college, $165.38. Add that to our balance. That updates our balance to $3,472.88. And then for year 4, our interest is $173.64. And that means that when you graduate, your loan that started at $3,000 is now $3,646.52. And so that means if we take the $3,646.252 and subtract the initial $3,000, that means that over the course of your college experience, that $3,000 loan, and that basically got you $646.52 in interest. Now, bear in mind, you are, unless you immediately pay the day after your graduation, you pay the loan in full, this is going to continue to accumulate interest. So just the $646.52 is just the interest that accumulated while you were in school, right? So until this is completely paid off, it's going to continue accumulating interest. Now, here is the great thing about the subsidized student loan. So this was all for an unsubsidized student loan, right? If this were a subsidized student loan, so if this were subsidized, then the government would have been paying all this interest while you're in school, right? So when you get out, that $3,000 that you borrowed, that's what you'd owe. You'd owe $3,000. So you'd have saved $646.52. Now, after you graduate with a subsidized loan, then you get the grace period of 6 months or whatever. And then after the grace period is up, assuming you don't get an unemployment deferment or something like that, at some point, your repayment is going to begin for a subsidized loan, right? Similar to unsubsidized. But with a subsidized loan, once repayment begins, once you go into repayment, then the government is no longer paying your interest, and then the loan balance will begin accumulating interest, and you'll have to pay the interest yourself after you enter repayment.